Have you ever gotten to stage 5 carousel, gotten a great item, only to find you don't have any removers left to re-equip your main carry? And worse yet, you don't have a good item holder on your board that you can sell to actually utilize the item for the next 2 combats, and that one item could be the difference between winning or losing a fight. Hello Tacticians, Professor Blep back again to give you another video in the Fundamental series, this time covering an often overlooked topic, item removers. Now, this topic feels trivial. I mean, they're so common, you get one every single round, but that's exactly why they're often overlooked, and item removers are a very powerful consumable. In some ways, they're a little bit too common, and players use them too freely in the early game and only notice when it's too late and they've run out. So in today's lesson, we're going to look at some tips and tricks on how to conserve those item removers into the late game where they really matter. And quick shout out to the folks on the TFT Discord for this lesson idea. Hope this one was worth the wait. Now, before we get into the how, let's look at why you should actually care at all about removers. The main reason is the power of this item is not equal at all times. They're much less impactful at the beginning of the game, as not only are your units less powerful, but you're also more willing to sell units holding items instead of using a remover. The further in the game you get, the more 4 and 5 costs you're playing on the board, and correctly itemizing those is extremely important. Plus, these units are typically key to your comp and not ones you're going to want to sell just to get the items off. The other reason is that the carousels and PvE rounds on stage 5 and onwards are giving full items, making it much more likely that you'll find a better combination of items for the units on your board every time that happens. And all of these little things add up. Every remover you use before stage 5 actually comes at quite a cost, even though they feel pretty free. Another often overlooked use is for moving Thieves' Gloves. Early on in the game, you don't really care what types of items you roll on these, but as you get into the late game, moving a Thieves' Gloves off a backliner that rolled 2 tank items onto a frontliner tank can make a huge difference, particularly if you have an unitemized 5 cost. With every remover that you save is one more time you can do this. Now, if you are a newer player, having good item remover economy isn't something that's going to come up in many of your games quite just yet, but bad habits can be really hard to break, so it's never really too early to get started practicing these skills. So let's dive into my 3 top tips to help you conserve those removers. And the number 1 reason for too many removers using the early game is slamming those components. You hear it from streamers all the time, tier diff, belt diff, sword diff. Top level players make it known when they lose a fight due to not slamming a component on a unit. But seeing that happen makes players equip components way more often than they should. Now, some components are fairly safe to equip. For instance, sword, rod, bow, and glove are generally going to build into backline items and fine to equip on a backliner. Similarly, vest is usually going to end up on a frontline unit. Cloak is also okay on a tank, but keep in mind there's less magic damage early on in stage 2, so it's not that impactful to slam a cloak. The 2 worst components to equip are tier and belt. These components can build just as often into a frontline item than a backline item, and you should generally avoid equipping them unless you know that it's going to make the difference in a fight. And common mistake number 2 is equipping unupgraded 1 and 2 cost units. Items multiply the power of a unit, so the weaker the unit, the less effective the item is going to be. And unless you can sell the unit later, if you happen to upgrade a different unit, well, now you can't move those items over without using up a remover. And since you never know what upgrades you'll hit in your next shop, generally try to avoid equipping items on your unupgraded 1 and 2 cost. Do know that 3 cost units are about equal to a 2-star 1 cost, so are generally okay to equip. And on a related note, the 3rd most common way removers get wasted is moving items from an upgraded 1 cost to a new upgraded 2 cost. Now, you're probably thinking this seems like a pretty reasonable use of a remover. It's upgrading your board. While that is true, the difference in power between a 1 and 2 cost unit is not all that big, and even though you may not realize that one remover probably is going to have a larger impact later in the game than your upgrade in the moment. The same thing tends to apply going from a 2 to a 3 cost unit. Now, one exception here, of course, is if you're trying to maintain a win streak, but in most other situations, think twice before moving the items and just wait until you sell the unit or move to a more substantial upgrade like a 3 or a 4 cost. Whenever possible, hold on to those extra copies of a replacement unit for your item holders as well. This way, if you do hit an upgrade, you can simply sell and move the items without messing up your board. As a general rule, you should be trying very hard not to use a remover in stages 2 and 3. Only commit them if you're trying to preserve a 5 or higher win streak, or if you know for sure the unit you're moving them to can be sold later, or you're equipping the final items onto a unit that you'll have for late game. In all other situations, think twice, and maybe you don't actually need to use the remover. Still, that's much easier said than done. I still have a lot of trouble being disciplined about my own item remover usage, but hopefully after today, you'll fare better than I do. And as always, if you found this lesson helpful, please like and comment on the video below and help others discover it too. And make sure to subscribe to know when new lessons are available. I am taking a short hiatus from streaming, but if you want to be notified when I next go live, make sure to follow me over at Twitch at BlepTheCat. Until next time, class dismissed.